Yeah. And we back. It's your boy. You know who I be. It's DRE repping that 3 and P. And y'all at the place to be. And that's another episode 3 and Impossible. Now, of course, I'm not here by myself. I'm here with my brothers from another mother. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Why don't y'all go ahead and do that?
It's the kid, Jay Gill from the southernmost tip.
Tip.
Your boy A-Rob from the south side. Y'all like the little pop in? Do it again.
First and foremost, we want to say happy Juneteenth to everybody.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Happy Juneteenth to everybody who's finally celebrating it and the recognition that it's finally getting. For those that don't know, we've been celebrating this for decades. I remember
Trump made it popular, right?
I heard he said that in the interview. Nobody had ever heard what it was until I said something about it.
That might be true. That might be true in his circles.
Yeah, maybe in his circles, but y'all know we've been celebrating this. We've been going to celebrations since at least our high school, like middle school, high school years. So I don't know what he's talking about. Maybe his first time he heard of it, and like you said, his circle heard of it, but we've been celebrating Juneteenth for
this has been celebrated.
Eons. So
we need to go ahead and just make that a national holiday so brothers can get that holiday pay.
I took today off, but it sounds like our company is going to do it next year, going to recognize it as a holiday. And I think people are trying to fight to make it a federal holiday too, so everybody will have it off.
I took the day off too.
Sure,
we know. You'll call at 7:30 in the morning. Hey, just want to let you know I'm not working. Neither am I.
Nike was the first company to recognize as a paid holiday. I believe so, if I'm not mistaken.
When was that?
I want to say 2 weeks ago.
Were they?
I don't give them credit for anything they did this year. Like if they had been doing it for, I mean, that is good now.
Nobody had been doing it.
If they had been doing it, I would give them more credit than that. But if they're the first people that came out and they started a trend and it ends up affecting me, then by golly, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if y'all come up with it. Twitter did it. Who else? Twitter, I want to say Facebook did it. Let me not lie. I don't know if Facebook did it. Nike did it. I know Target did it. Trying to think what other companies do I know of that actually are recognizing it as a paid holiday. I can't remember, but in any event, not Amazon, Microsoft I think did it as well, for sure.
The Trump organization.
They prepping for their rally. Yeah, they ain't getting no day off. The rally tomorrow now.
Jay Gill got front row seats.
Probably flying out tonight.
You know, the Spirit airline flying out.
Yeah, right. They probably wouldn't even let me in.
Yeah. They probably you'd be all right there. Look at my African American over there.
I know. Look at this guy. Your support's huge.
Thank you.
Just look at me and say, fantastic.
Perfect.
It's most excellent Negro over there. I'm gonna say we've been getting feedback. People think it's funny how horrible our Trump impersonations are.
I know. It's trash. Yeah, I'm gonna stop.
I can't. I ain't even gonna try to get like it. So it is what it is. But speaking of Black History and Juneteenth, a while back we did a Malcolm X kind of a recap. Yeah, a recap of the show that was on Netflix, Who Killed Malcolm X, and we covered the first 3 episodes, but we wanted to do a part 2 and cover the last 3 episodes of the series that was on Netflix. And I know Jay Gill had come up with a list of questions for us to kind of spur the discussion in regards to the last 3 episodes. If you haven't seen it, shame on you, and spoiler alert, especially in the climate that we're in right now, right?
Look, this was pre-Rona, okay? So y'all should have been watched this already.
Right. So if you haven't yet and you want to still watch it without knowing what happens, or at least some extent of what happened, keep watching and then go watch it. We need our views too. So, Jay Gill, what you got for us?
Well, one thing I wanted to start with, if you brothers watch the last three, and for all the people out there that watch the last 3 episodes, I started to feel like the way they kind of, well, let me start with this. They were talking about Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They were talking about how he had some extra girlfriends on the side, and they were like, doesn't matter. I thought, maybe their tone on women was getting slightly toxic. I know that's the kind of the new woke term. I don't use that a ton, but it just kind of seemed like I don't see women in leadership roles, at least not from what the doc shows me. So remember that I don't know much about the NOI outside of this doc, to be honest. And just how they talked about it was nothing for him to have a few extra girlfriends, whether they were 16, 17 or what.
Do you think that was, and I'm not defending the NOI, we'll get into our own kind of beliefs or perceptions about the NOI, but do you think that was also context of the times in which they were living in the 60s, where women weren't necessarily viewed as like breadwinners? They were like, how like they're like, men go to work, they're the breadwinners, women are typically at home or in more like service type roles,
homemakers and stuff like that.
Right, like more so in the era of the times where they more so viewed like that as opposed to just being viewed like that in the NOI. You think that had a bit to do with it too, like in the 60s?
I mean, you're probably right. Because it's pretty bad these days anyway. I mean, I think it's better in some ways, but I don't know if the doc meant to make it seem that way, but it was just like, what did the guy compare it to? He was like, do you think it's wrong that he had these extra wives? And he was like, as a Christian, do you think it's wrong that David looked in the background and saw Bathsheba and sent his husband off to war, to the front lines to die so he could have her? I just was like, oh man, and he's not saying this in the 60s, by the way. That gentleman was saying that when this doc was made, probably in the last couple of years.
Yeah, 2000, probably like 2000.
So he clearly still, like a man with power, and they say he's divine, right? They believe he's divine, should be able to do what he wants. I was wondering if you guys saw that and had that same feeling I did. But even today, because he wasn't asking the guy in the 60s, he was asking a guy in maybe 2016, 17, something like that.
Yeah, I looked at it sideways too, kind of very similar to how you did, and especially when they spoke on the ages of the women that which he was having kids with, right?
Malcolm outed him.
Right.
Well, let's set the background. They took Malcolm X's house.
Yep.
So the nation bought a house for him. Malcolm spent 12 years in the nation doing a lot of work for them, in my opinion. And, when they split, which the last 3 episodes really kind of focuses on, when Malcolm starts to, get away from them and starts to do his own thing in the struggles he had and successes he had. They took his house. So he started, oh, you're going to take my house?
Yep.
So, this man's not practicing what he preaches. And it kind of leads me into a question I had. I don't know what faith you gentlemen are in or not, and maybe that doesn't matter, but there's a belief that that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was divine. Do you guys believe that he's divine looking back, hindsight being 2020, knowing a little more about his story than maybe his followers did back in that time?
Go ahead, Dre.
And maybe if you don't want to answer that directly, how do you feel about other divine, I hate to call them characters, but Jesus, all of them.
So, would Elijah Muhammad fall a little bit more under like the category as far for like me being Catholic, like the Pope, would he fall under like the category of that?
I think so. I think, yeah, I think so. They say he's divine. They say he, is more than human.
Yeah, I mean, when they start saying stuff like that, like divine or more than human, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, and these individuals who are in these higher rankings, as far as in whatever religion they may be in, um, they're human as well. And they have their flaws, they have their mistakes, and I just don't see why it should be something where they like sweep those flaws and mistakes under the rug to kind of keep that divine status and not look on them. Like as far as Catholic churches, I'm all for when, the whole scandal going on, people were getting exposed and called out, because that's something that needs to happen. It's it's only right that these people face I guess the punishment for their crimes. You know what I mean?
Doesn't affect your belief in the religion. It's just it seems like you recognize humans are,
It does at times. I'm not gonna lie. I'm someone who has left the church a few times just because I felt hypocrisy. You know what I mean? I felt hypocrisy, and for me, it rubbed me the wrong way. And it's like, how is someone going to tell me how to live? Someone's supposed to be guiding me to live the right path, but they're doing some dirt themselves. You know what I mean? And then they're quick to kind of, and especially in the Catholic Church, I'll keep it funky. There's a lot of judgmental people within that church and within that religion. So it's like, you do something, but they'll shun you for that. But then their dirt doesn't matter. You know what I mean? I don't know. It does affect that for me at times. The belief of being someone who's divine and supposed to be higher than thou.
What's your view on, and you can, again, you don't have to focus on the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but do you get the feeling that he was divine from this doc? Robert.
First off, who the is Robert? But I'm gonna circle back and answer part of your first question before I address that too. I don't subscribe to any particular faith or denomination. I think I broke pretty early from any like religious views. I believe you should try to have some kind of connection or something with a higher power. But I don't subscribe to any one particular view. But I think what you see out of a lot of religions is that people who ascend to these positions abuse power. And I think you see that across multiple religions, right? You even see that in corporate arenas, in government positions. You see people who ascend to power, they tend to abuse that power. Not saying that all people that ascend do, but I think Elijah Muhammad was just an example of, somebody that ascended to a certain position, had this, I don't want to call it a cult, but it's like a large group of followers who believed in what he was preaching and doing for the Black community. And he did a lot of great things for the Black community, especially in that time period. You're talking about giving people jobs, giving people hope, resources, businesses. He did a lot for the Black community then. But as far as me feeling like he's divine, no, I don't think anybody who comes from, the same level as you or I and ascends to a certain position is any more divine than you or I is, right? I think that they just, took advantage of an opportunity. And I don't mean advantage in a bad term, right? But they had an opportunity and they seized it, right? And they were able to rise. So I don't think personally he's divine or any better than any other person, right? Because you look at Dre's point with Catholic religion and popes, right? They go to school to learn that stuff and then they ascend through the ranks. So it's not like they just magically were appointed and somebody was like, oh my God, he's got such great wisdom, prop them up as our leader. They go to school for all this stuff, they learn this stuff, and then they ascend to positions of power. So no, I don't think he was divine.
Okay. Did you guys see your guy Cory Booker in the? Oh man, we don't have to stay on this, but when I saw Cory Booker, I feel like I just had a realization that man is 1,000% a politician, and I'm not sure there's anything else to him. And I don't ever see myself supporting him.
Did you believe him
for president?
Did you believe him when he said he didn't know about the connections?
I don't believe he didn't know. It seems like all the people in Newark at least know the rumors, as they put them.
Yeah.
It's an open secret about who killed Malcolm X in Newark, and the people of Newark seem to want to leave it buried. I don't know. It was kind of sickening. It's like the rest of the world has a big respect for Malcolm X, and it's like you go to maybe Newark, and it's like, man, they're more Elijah Muhammad people than Malcolm X, it seems.
Yeah.
From this doc. Make it clear from the doc's point of view.
Right. I thought the doc, painted in a light that was like the people from Newark didn't want to, I think maybe they know the truth or knew the truth, but they didn't want it to necessarily come out to paint a bad light on Newark and have Newark be viewed as, this bad place because of what maybe somebody from there did, or because it was known that the guys that did the shooting came from a mosque in Newark, right? Yeah. They don't want that negative attention on their city, as opposed to people allowing the city to kind of thrive and move past that kind of.
A few of them seem pretty proud about it, though. To me, there was some feeling I got from watching, maybe not just the last 3 episodes, but Malcolm X got what was coming to him.
Yeah,
that's the feeling I got from those guys.
Yeah, I think
some of them.
Well, the doc did say that there was a pretty hard split, right? When Malcolm went right and Elijah went left, there was people that split too, and they had to pick they said in the doc there was no neutral. You couldn't be maybe Malcolm and some Elijah. Yeah, you had to pick a side. You weren't able to play in the middle. You had to pick a side. And then, like you said,
it was pretty. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like Jay Gill said, it sounds like people were in Newark were pretty pro Elijah Muhammad.
And also at the point of the documentary too, they always said it was pretty clear, like the tension in the air, that there was a potential that hit was more likely on Malcolm, just floating around, and how kind of what was it, the last 2 years of his life at that point, where he was just kind of just like always on I don't want to say on edge, but he just had that lingering feeling going on to where he's going to therapy daily and all that, talking to someone just because he had that lingering feeling going on. So obviously the tensions were high, where it's like you're either down with Muhammad or you're down with Malcolm.
Yeah.
So
this is not a question I had prepared, but let's say Malcolm X lives. What's the chance that his program, whatever, I can't remember what he was calling it. I think it was like Islam Incorporated or Muslim. I can't remember exactly. I should have wrote that down, but
it was like the Harlem.
Oh, it was something incorporated. I can't remember what it was.
Do you think if they let him live, and I do think that NOI, I'm giving myself, I do think that NOI was in on his murder in one way or another. Do you think their fears were valid, that he would have become maybe bigger than they are? I mean, maybe he has, even in death, but would he have outshined, maybe created an organization bigger, better, more recognized, more powerful than the NOI?
Yeah, I think he would have. And the reason being is that he was just a much more like elegant speaker, presenter than Elijah Muhammad, right? So the way he presented himself, he was much more personable amongst people. There wasn't, as you alluded to earlier, that divineness about him, right? He was a man of the people. You could see him, you could touch him. He spoke things that you were actually experiencing. He was speaking a lot of the things that people felt, as far as, why I always got to turn the cheek. You're asking me to turn the cheek and you're constantly beating me down. No, I don't want to turn the cheek anymore. I want to slap you back. So I think he was speaking a lot of things that people were feeling. And I think there was a gravitation towards him, and he was becoming like a global figure too, right? You talk about him traveling, and I think one of the things that I wrote down is, and I'm not going to take away from your question, but was he right in that some of these other countries need to condemn the United States for how they treat African Americans, as a human rights issue?
They still should.
Yeah, but to your question, I do think there was some fear that there would have been migration over to his point of view throughout time.
What do I had an interesting thing pop in my head because Elijah Muhammad versus Malcolm is Malcolm all day and twice on Sundays, right? It doesn't even pass the smell test to say Elijah's a better speaker or leader, and leader, maybe I shouldn't question his leadership skills, but when Malcolm got on that mic versus Elijah, I mean, it wasn't even close. But what about Farrakhan versus Malcolm X? Because I got a lot of love for the way Farrakhan jumped in front of that mic and what the way he carries himself among people. So what do you think? Maybe I don't think it's so easy for us to say Malcolm's organization would have been bigger. Like the NOI was already there. Malcolm would have had to build, and then comes Farrakhan, who I think is more on Malcolm's level of a leader.
I think Farrakhan also learned from Malcolm too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was in the organization at the same time, so he was able to glean some of the things that Malcolm did and put it into his presentation. But I forgot what your actual question was, but I think if you look at the three of them, right, as far as movements, I think they were, in regards in that time, they were what the people needed. So when Elijah formed the Nation of Islam, that was what the people needed. They needed to be self-sufficient, needed to work amongst each other. And then you roll into, that 50s, 60s period when Malcolm's coming out now, right? Now he's what they need. We're getting beat down in the streets. There's a resistance to that now. There's more people willing to resist that. So he was what the people needed at that time. And then you get Farrakhan, who's a little bit more polished than, Elijah Muhammad as far as presentation goes. But he's still preaching the things that people need to hear. And he's expanding the Nation of Islam's reach into other areas and things. So I think they were unique in their own senses. And in that time period, they were just what the people needed.
Yeah, I gotta agree. If you guys don't have anything to add, I'll just roll on into the next question.
Well, hold on. Can we go back to that one? Do you guys feel, Jay Gill, you already answered it a little bit, but do you guys feel that because what Malcolm was saying in the documentary, he was like, hey, I'm going to, I think it was like the North African states or whatever, and saying that, hey, you guys have a group of us, Native African Americans or descendants of Native Africans here in the States, we're being treated like dog crap. Y'all have the resources to help us, or you can at least openly condemn and work with your brothers in the States. Do you guys feel like that movement should have gained steam, and is it still applicable today?
No, because America, I think they're too good at getting rid of leaders that are against what they're for. I think they give too much money to these different places. Power corrupts. You're basically asking the few people at the top to support their people and maybe leave behind, support their people at risk of losing aid in different things. I don't think even today, and especially not then, and I shouldn't say that, man, I wasn't around, but my guess is it was the same then. Without the aid, they might not have been able to keep power in their own countries, and a lot of them have probably been propped up, and the ones that mess with us. America's just got this grip on the world. This, I don't even know if America is the right way, just this European grip, America included, on the world, and especially Africa. I would say for better, for worse, but for worse.
Do you think that, because we have organizations now like the United Nations, right, that can
no teeth. They have no teeth.
But
when they go against America, when they go against China, they are shut down.
But you don't think they can outwardly condemn the treatment, because there's so many times that they condemn other countries for human rights issues, right? Not treating their citizens a certain way, or in the sense of being humanitarian to their citizens. If they say that, does that shift how the rest of the world looks at the United States and is willing to deal with the United States?
No. Some of the world maybe, but you know, a lot of these places are getting aid. The United Nations depends on USA, depends on aid from the UK and you know what I mean, in China. So unfortunately, like Russia, you know, these big countries wield a lot of power in the United Nations and things like that. So I don't, and I do think they've made some strong statements here or there. Don't get me wrong, not maybe not specifically on this topic, but about the U.S.'s wrongdoings.
Okay.
And I think they depend too much upon the aid. They don't have an army. I mean, I don't think they have any real teeth.
But do you think like the rest of the world, because we don't have a ton of natural resources, right? We reach out to other places for natural resources. What we do have is, I don't even want to say we have the advantage in technology, but I think
we have the advantage in military force.
Right. And financially, we have a ton of power in that sense, right?
But would we have that without the military? So I think everything's pretty much based on power. Who's got the biggest stick. Yeah. And the U.S. has had the biggest stick for a while. So how could we lose control when, you know what I mean? They will go, and the countries that might have supported us, right? You know, brown people countries, you know, they've got their knee on their throat or their hands in their pocket. You know, how's a country like, say, Pakistan or Saudi Arabia or you know, or any of the, you know, Iran, what are any of them going to say to the U.S. without fear of reprisal, if that's the right word?
I think you got to that's why I think it's got to be a tie between several nations, right? China's got the technology, Russia's got resources, Africa's got resources. You know, I think there has to be a global condemning of the United States' treatment towards African Americans for it to even take any kind of effect. Because like you said, you're right. We've got teeth in the game in these large organizations. So but.
I think these countries, you know, China doesn't, I hate to say it, but China don't care about no black man. I think if somehow all of these countries, if what they wanted, their, what am I trying to say? Basically if, dang, I really can't think of the word, but if the things they wanted match up with the things we want, right?
Oh, their interest, yeah.
Their interest. Why can't I think of interest? If our interests align, then maybe we have a chance. But it won't be as simple as, hey, what you're doing is wrong. Well, China's doing so much wrong shit to, you know, their ethnic people, right? Try being black and living in China, you know, in certain parts. So, you know, unless our interests align, we don't have a shot. So the question is, how do we get our interests to align to put America at a disadvantage? And then maybe we'll get some policy change.
Yeah, no, I think it's hard, but I just wanted to throw that question out because I think he was somewhat ahead of his time with that type of thinking. So,
yeah, it's, I mean, over and over and over, and it kind of goes with my next question. They saw Malcolm X, if he were to live longer, to grow, to get more power, he would be a thorn in their side. Now you have to think, like, why would that matter? Like, he's wanting black people to be treated fairly. You know, I never remember seeing a speech or anything Malcolm said where he said, hey, let's just go pick up a rock and go throw it at white people. You know, I don't remember that. It was always, hey, if someone does something to you, you respond, right. You know, and protect yourself. Like, that is black supremacy to some people, you know. And my question was, we talk a lot about the cops, and I feel like it's easy for me to say the cops are there to protect white supremacy, right? To help protect the structure, but we don't think a lot about the FBI, the CIA. What do you guys think? Are those organizations also, from watching this doc, are they also just here to kind of protect and you know, shield white supremacy from being defeated or even giving up some power? Is that maybe even their main goal?
That's a great question. I don't know if you want to say that they're there to protect white supremacy. I'm not gonna say. Well, I take that back. I don't want to say that. I don't know if you want to say
the
that.
power structure.
Right. Is the power structure in place to continue to keep white, particularly white males at the top? Absolutely. I think there was a comment from one of the cops in the video as I'm trying to look at my notes here, that he had, God, I'm blanking on the guy's name who was Malcolm X, like Josh Freeman or something was his security guard. I was Josh Freeman. Whatever the brother's name was, he was one of the security guards who was in front of the stage. And when he checked in, he worked for the NYPD, I think it was, their boss unit, Bureau of Special Services. So when he checked in the morning after, he said, the supervisor said, "Why'd you help him? You're a cop. He's a thug," right? Like, why were you giving him mouth to mouth to try to, keep him alive? Your job, and I forgot, I didn't put the actual quote that the guy made, but basically he was saying they were
Eugene Roberts.
Yeah, that was his name, Gene Roberts. That's what he called him. Yeah. So basically he was saying you're only there to observe and take him down for criminal behavior. You don't help him in any dire straits. So
he was a thug. He's a thug.
That's what he called him. He was like, "You're a cop. He's a thug." But they weren't sworn in. There's no record. They weren't given a gun, weren't given a badge. But back to your original point, do I think the FBI and CIA are designed to keep white supremacists in power? I think maybe not keep that's a tough question. I do think it's to keep the power within the hands of white males in particular. I think the organizations are aligned that way. I think they will fight whatever challenges that structure. Anybody who challenges that structure, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, anybody that tries to change that power slightly, they will attack.
I'll go a step further. It's clear to me they're putting in informants. They want these people to die. You saw some of the things, like, we have to do something about this guy. They had a description of the male who murdered Malcolm X, and they did not share that with the NYPD. It was dark-skinned, tall guy. They said
6'2".
The NYPD ends up with a light-skinned guy as the shotgun wielder, because the shotgun, for you that don't know, the shotgun spray is what killed Malcolm X. And to me, it's clear. It's kind of scary when you're watching this and you see this and you come to realization they're probably watching Black Lives Matter people. Hell, if we got big enough and we're talking like this, we might even be on some list, not for saying, hey, we need to go hurt random people, to gain power somehow, just for saying, hey, me, Robert, and Dre, we want freedom.
Who the
just look in the mirror.
No.
but to me, it's clear that they are, if the power structure supports is basically white supremacy, I think they're just tools to keep that in play, to keep that in power. And any Black person, any Asian, Latino who wants freedom, true freedom, who wants any power, who wants fairness, who might speak out against injustice, you're a thug to them. You're enemy of the state. They will kill you. They will allow you to be killed. They will, they will fight against you. They will fight back. And I do think they're doing that today.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't disagree with that. Anybody that challenges that structure or their power, yeah, they're gonna get rid of them. I almost just lied on here because I was watching that documentary about Reconstruction, and I was gonna say they were actually created to prosecute crimes by the KKK, but that was the Department of Justice that was created for that. So the DOJ was originally formed to prosecute triple K crimes.
Ain't that funny
for you? But and now look what they're infiltrated by. So
we need someone in the comments fact check Alexander now that he's gonna be lying on here.
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna read it, but go ahead. Whatever next question you had. I don't think I had.
How has your gentleman's view of the NOI before? Well, you don't have to say before and after, but how has your view of the NOI, Nation of Islam, changed since watching this documentary, if it has changed?
Go ahead, Dre. I'm looking for this documentary.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say for me personally, I mean, seeing what they were doing at first, it was, you know, like A-Rob said, they were there in a time of need where Elijah Muhammad established that for the African American males to, you know, have a spot to go. But after the whole debacle with the whole Malcolm X splitting, and then just kind of the tension between the two organizations, I did kind of lose some respect for the NOI.
I think two things can be true. The NOI does very good things. It came about to do very good things, right? To help people. But I think at some point the money started rolling in, and the power, you know, if he said jump, they said how high. You know what I mean? I think at some point the power, the money just corrupted the system. But I don't think they're bad today. No. I don't think they're necessarily good. I think they do good things, and given enough power, they probably do some bad things. I'd like to say I thought Malcolm was clear in trying to do the right things and fighting injustice. But we don't know if he wielded all the power, if he wouldn't have been 70-year-old Malcolm with 15, 16-year-old women and getting them, you know, I don't know. You know, we can judge Elijah Muhammad. I don't think he was divine. I think he was a human being like me or you, that did some great things, and he did some horrendous things. And maybe horrendous isn't the word, but I do think, you know, passing down of power, you know, you're supposedly divine. And so God has chosen your family to be divine, right? Because he's going to now pass this power, this money down to his family. Like, to me, that seems fraudulent. It's like, there's no way God is choosing Elijah Muhammad's family, generation after generation after generation to lead the people. That doesn't make sense. All these black folk, but Elijah Muhammad's seeds, you know, it's crazy to me. And I think they started out really good. I think they got a little corrupted. If anything challenged their power, they're no different than any other structure. They're going to fight, kill, to stay alive.
Yeah.
To keep the power.
I think, Jay Gill, you hit it on the head. So I don't really have much to add to that. But I had a question for you guys in regards to, well, I take that back. The NOI, and I think you hit it on the head with the NOI. They started off really, really great. There's probably a fraction of people or a faction of people within there that became corrupt. But I think their intent is still to elevate our people, right? So I don't have any problem with them. It did change a bit of my perception watching the documentary, but it was a faction of them, a small amount of them, because I felt like their overall intent is to still uplift our people. But my question for you guys is, do you have a problem with Malcolm X trying to ascend that ladder, right? Why should he not aspire? Because everybody viewed him as the number 2 to Elijah Muhammad. Do you have an issue with him being ambitious and saying, hey, I've got some ideals that I think can further advance our people. I aspire to get this message out to them. Do you guys have an issue with him aspiring or being ambitious to climb to the top of the Nation of Islam?
I think the same thing that can make you great can be your downfall. And I think that's what happened to Malcolm, to Brother Malcolm. I think you cannot stop most alpha males, or I hate to say male after that, but in this case he's male, but you can't stop alphas from being alpha. He was not a guy to sit back and play the back behind Elijah Muhammad, especially after, you know, if I don't know if you guys have thought about that, but he's there seeing that this man is 70 with 15, 16-year-old girls, and he's got all these women pregnant, and he's not preaching that. He's preaching the opposite of that, right? And he's doing the opposite of what he's preaching. So so now we, you know, watching the doc, we know that, right? We knew that a little bit. We knew he had all these babies, but now watching the doc, it's like, well, Malcolm was there sitting like, I'm living the word and you're not. Maybe that played a part in it as well. He's an alpha. Malcolm was an alpha, probably his whole life. And you cannot be the number two. Like, he's a number one, you know. Imagine, you know, Jordan coming off the bench, scoring 30 a game. No, he's a starter. You can't, you know, you can't play the back. He's not going to be happy. I don't fault him for that. But again, the same thing that made him great certainly got him killed.
It's that Taurus trait in Malcolm X. You know? That's all that is. That's that Taurus trait. You know, yeah. We're natural leaders. We definitely, when it comes to authority, we like to bump head with it and see. We want to. We want to see those plans through, and we will do by any means. You know.
Yeah.
Unintended. So
I think too, his and they refer to this a lot, but I forgot the term but his reform, right, going from a criminal to this position of power, I think also gave him credibility amongst the people to say, hey, I was down there doing all kinds of dirt and I made myself into this. If you guys haven't been at that level of criminality that I was at, so imagine what you can build yourselves to. So I think that, along with his charisma, his ability to present and talk to the people, really just elevated him. Maybe even, well, I guess this gonna contradict Jay Gill, but maybe even to the point that he may not have even wanted to be that, you know, alpha, but just the people elevated him to that point because they loved hearing him speak, wanted to hear more and more of him. Mm-hmm. But no, he probably was an alpha all his life, like Jay Gill said. I mean, went to Harlem. You know,
you are what you are, man. You are what you are, and you know, Elijah Muhammad started a really good thing, right? He got all this power, and it's like, it was clear who the next leader was. Now, I'm not mad at Farrakhan, but it was clear who the next leader was, and they couldn't accept that. And when they couldn't accept that, you know, you can't put Malcolm, you know, in a box and just, you know, suspend him and he's just going to stay sidelined. You know, again, you can't put Michael Jordan on the bench for Dennis Rodman or anyone else. You know?
I got a question then. Do you guys think Elijah overstayed his prime? Like, if you talk about,
absolutely,
yes,
yeah. Do you think if he would have kind of succeeded some of that power to Malcolm, things would have been a little bit better? You know, because you always talk about people in sports overstaying their prime, right? Like being forced out of the game. Did Elijah overstay his prime?
I think so.
But the thing about sports is, you know, if you can't beat the guy, the next guy, you can't beat him. Like, Elijah's looking at this guy who's better than him
is a threat.
You know, in so many ways, right? As far as leading the people and presenting whatever he's presenting to the people. He's built this thing around himself, and naturally his sons and daughters or whatever, they feel like when he goes, that's theirs. So now you have an issue. You know, his sons, whatever, you know, I wonder if it crossed their head that you could never lead that. You could never lead the NOI. But Malcolm clearly, like, it's clearly could. Clearly he, you know, and like I said, power is not, you know, and that's the thing I fear most about our country and what's going on right now with all the unrest. Power, you know, no one gives up power. You take power, period. Yeah. And
so you feel like it was
Malcolm's dead because of that, because he could have taken the power and he would have taken. That's what he had been preaching. You don't take your freedom. I mean, you don't, you're not given freedom, you take it.
So you feel like it was inevitable that he would have been ran out one way or another?
Oh, yeah.
He would have been killed, or he would have become bigger than the NOI, and maybe the NOI maybe not even around today if Malcolm was allowed to live. But yeah, I mean, it was clear. It was clear where things were going. You know, Malcolm was the guy, and a lot of people who maybe been in there before him and were family and sons and daughters, maybe they were, and they were obviously jealous and unhappy that he at one point was gaining power. But he really helped build. Elijah Muhammad may have created the NOI, right, or been there at the start, but Malcolm X took them from 0 to 60.
Yep.
And maybe not from 0 to 60, but from about 15 to 60.
Yeah, I would say he definitely grew the base.
No doubt
of it. So, but I'm sorry, I got off. We got sidetracked with some questions, but I don't know what you had.
That was a good question.
That was a really
Brother Robert.
Bro.
You guys watched the episodes like I did. Maybe we already answered this, but why do you think the FBI and police allowed 2 people to be framed for Malcolm X's murder? And the person I believe from after watching the doc murdered Malcolm X, or most likely, maybe not I believe, but the person most likely to have murdered him, or at least hit him with the shotgun spray that killed him, was William Bradley. I didn't take down his Muslim name, but something Mufasa.
Al-Mustafa Shabazz.
Yeah. So why do you think? 2 questions. Why do you think the FBI allowed 2 men to go to prison that most likely, in my opinion, should not have gone down for the murder because they weren't a part of it? And why do you think Mustafa was celebrated so heavenly upon his death?
Ooh, why did they allow two innocent men to go to prison? I think that's going to be deeper than Malcolm X. Why is the system set up the way it is? They don't really care about true justice, right? They care about closing a case and making it look like they did their job. So if they could blame or scapegoat 2 men and say, hey, we did all we could and we got the killers, you got to be satisfied. What more do people want from justice, right? They want to see, even if you look at the situation today, they want to see the 4 officers involved with George Floyd go to court and get a conviction. They want to see the officers that killed Breonna Taylor go to court and get a conviction. So out of our justice system, what we want is somebody be pinpointed as the person who did something, convicted for it, and sentenced appropriately. So I feel like they felt like they got, from a public standpoint, they got the job done, right? We got the killer.
They got rid of an enemy, I think.
Well, not just even in Malcolm X, but they can point the finger and say, hey, you guys want to know who killed him? This is who killed him. We did our jobs. What more do you want from us? We found out who killed him. We put him away. The truth doesn't really matter. Somebody paid the price for killing him, right? And your second one was, why was he celebrated as a hero when he died? I think the way the documentary painted it is because, and there's almost some parallels between him and Malcolm X in a sense, right? He did this stuff prior to, he goes to prison, he comes out and gives back to the community, his community, right? Through a boxing gym, mentoring other younger Islam men, and helping groom them and prepare them for life. I think because of what he gave back to the community, in particular in Newark, that's why he was celebrated, because he did so much for the community. But I wrote that down as a note, but it's interesting that it was like ironic to me that there was parallels between him and Malcolm. You go to prison, you come out and you reform your life, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's why he was so celebrated when he died. But Dre, that first question, as far as the FBI, what you think?
I mean, I think I'm gonna have to kind of agree with you on that one, where you just said it's a little deeper than Malcolm, where it's something where it's kind of like, we're just gonna give the closure and get this case out the way, give you guys a face to say that we got the person, and keep it moving.
Like they didn't care. They didn't
really
care.
They didn't care. Like,
not like they didn't. They didn't care.
Yeah, I was saying, we know they didn't care. We saw they treated the crime scene hours after. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I have to agree with you on that one, Rob. As far as why they celebrate him, I'm not quite sure I have an answer on that one. But I do remember seeing the parallels you were talking about as far as between him and Malcolm in the reform in the documentary. So, yeah.
Well, I kind of disagree with you guys. I'm not so sure how much them caring or not had to do with it. I think we're missing a part of this story that may never come out. There is a reason I think the FBI decided not to go as far as they could have and really pin this on the NOI, right? The mosque. They knew where these people came from. They probably, I mean, they knew the killer wasn't, I mean, their description of the guy with the shotgun was not, it was a light-skinned guy that went down as the trigger man on the shotgun. The FBI themselves had 9, I believe, informants in the room. They knew who it wasn't, at least. They knew who it was. There's a disconnect somewhere. There's something they did that they did not want uncovered. And that is why they did not assist the NYPD and didn't want all the facts revealed, because maybe I don't think they cared about William Bradley. And you can call him by your Muslim name if he wants, but his mother called him William Bradley. I'm gonna call him William Bradley. So there's something we maybe really juicy, we just don't know about, because I think they would be fine with putting the brothers who did it in prison, because it ties it all back to the NOI more closely to the NOI if they did their job. And I do think the FBI would have preferred to do that, to nail it to the NOI. Of course, they had their own role, right? They let this happen. They knew it was coming and they let this happen. The situation was right. The NOI had been hinting at this. They were on wiretap. They did. Oh, the only difference is they just didn't say, "Hey, go kill him." But we don't know if they said that off the mic, right? Yeah. But if they would have tied it to that mosque, that would have made it more of an official assassination by the NOI, of course, assisted by the NYPD. And there's something they did, something in there that FBI did that they didn't want uncovered, and so it wasn't worth it to go after justice, because of course they would have had to, let out some information they didn't want us to know.
Well, I think that's interesting. And in a sense, they did say that of those 9, a few of them quit too, right? So why would they never come out with information that they had in regards to it? Or maybe they weren't given that information. But I think the FBI, by sitting back, also allowed, their main goal was to get rid of Malcolm anyways, right? So if they got rid of him and pinned it on another black man, who cares? They were still part of the NOI, the men that they pinpointed, right? They just weren't necessarily from the temple in which we know the killers came from, but they were
it would have been different. Would have been different if that mosque, if they said, hey, all 5 killers come from mosque 25, whatever it was in Newark, it would have been, I think, that would have tied it closer to the NOI to me than just saying, hey, these random Fruit of Islam participants just went rogue.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's hard. You know what I mean? Like, will we ever get the truth? Probably not. I don't think we'll live to see it, if it even comes out at this point, because I think most people that are involved have passed away. Besides Norman Butler, I think he's still alive to my knowledge.
He's like 80-some years old.
Yeah, but he was innocent, so he doesn't know. And I think everybody else involved actually had passed away. But yeah, I don't. That's tough, man. I don't know. There's probably deeper motives to your point that we'll never be aware of. But at the end of the day, I think they got what they wanted done. They killed somebody who was a radical, a revolutionary, and may have inspired generations of African Americans to raise up and fight for equal rights, challenge their status quo, challenge their system, and possibly overthrow it.
Yeah.
And I know they got people out here now.
So if we go missing, y'all, just know.
Well, we ain't going missing anytime soon, but if you are at the head of any of these groups and you're out there and you're really fighting for change, and you are what could be labeled as a leader of a movement, yeah, you got to watch the people that come around you. the FBI, the CIA, the police, they are really, really good at protecting white supremacy. They're really good at this. They have a lot of practice at this.
That's funny you say that, because it was so interesting to hear that even at that time, right, in the 60s, where we typically view our people as having stuck together so much because they had no other option, that not only did the FBI have 9 informants in that room, but the NYPD also had an informant who was a personal bodyguard to Malcolm X. So to your point of watching the people who are around you, how have they become so successful at infiltrating our organizations and we haven't theirs? You know what I mean? Like, they're planting people in our organizations to destroy us from, and I think that's how they get, I don't want to compare them to like the mob and stuff, but that's how they get major organizations broken up, is you infiltrate by putting somebody in and causing fractions and things and then breaking it apart. And that's just, it was mind-boggling to me as I watched it to think of, because I typically view the era of the 60s as us being together, you know, Black Pride, Black Power, the movement, civil rights, all of us being together. But there was obviously people who were in there that weren't necessarily, I don't want to call them sellouts, but they were sellouts.
They were sellouts, brother. But they were getting paid. They sold themselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To hurt their own brothers. And they probably didn't want to snitch on themselves. You know, I think I mean, obviously it came out that Eugene was on the NYPD side, but even when Malcolm was shot, he tried to revive him, and you know, why would you do that? Why, you know, it's funny, they call us animals, but it's clear who the animals and the savages are. They wear suits and they're in power.
It's so funny you say that, because as I was watching that Reconstruction document, everybody that has an issue with the protests, the rioting, the looting, that stuff was done against us. Like, during that entire Reconstruction period, from the time the slaves were told they were free, the last slaves, that's why we celebrate Juneteenth in Galveston, Texas, were informed that they were free. They were actually free, you know, 2 years prior to that, but they just found out June 19th, 1865, that they were actually free. You know, during that entire Reconstruction period, mobs of white folks came and destroyed families, businesses, neighborhoods with violence, with looting, you know, murder, like all of this stuff. Just when you said that about animals, it was like, yo, I can draw the parallel to this Reconstruction documentary that I was watching, and they just went off. Like, yo,
don't you going too far? Karen is in the office afraid.
I get it, but just the fact that people have an issue with it today, but the same stuff was being done against us. So it's not that you have an issue with the actual thing, you have an issue with who's doing it. Yep. Right? Who's fighting and pushing back against changes is what the issue is with, not necessarily people doing this type of thing. But it was just funny. Yeah. I just drew a parallel to the Reconstruction.
Yeah, you just watch a podcast of Black brothers speaking on stuff like that, and it's one thing to disagree, but when you feel threatened or something, you're probably racist, you know? Just saying. I mean, it's pretty easy to find out where you fall on the, you know, if there's 0 to 100, 0 being not racist at all to 100, you know, that's a pretty good indicator that you have issues.
Yeah.
If us simply speaking about things, you know, that the community needs, wants, believes they deserve, which is usually just fairness and, you know,
equality,
not killing us, you know.
Thanks for the views, though.
Yeah. Thanks for the views, though. But Karen is in the office, and she's afraid of you, Rob.
Oh my God, he's speaking his mind.
Just saying, there's a Karen somewhere. These guys,
That's history. You can't defute that. That's history. This is in the history books. This is a documentary. If you got a problem with it, I'll send you the link. But this is you know what I mean? This is in the books. Like, I ain't make this up.
Bro. Drop the link.
I ain't make this up. This is in the documentary. I just watched it and then verbalizing it.
Facts right now.
I just, you know what I mean? You can't refute this. This is in the documentary. But going back to Malcolm X, there was an interesting quote towards the end of the documentary when we're talking about William X. Bradley, in regards to him having done or not pulled the trigger or been the shotgun man. There was a gentleman, I can't remember his name, at the end of the documentary, he said something along the lines of, our religion teaches that if you take the holy trip to Mecca, all of your sins are absolved, and then where you go from there, you know, really sets you up with, oh, it said my internet connection's unstable. Y'all getting that?
You froze up for a little while.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But towards the end of the documentary, he said, you know, if you take that holy pilgrimage to Mecca and do whatever they got to do on that pilgrimage, your sins from the day you were born until that moment are absolved, and whatever you do from then forward is, you know, is your new life, right? And then at the end of your life, you have got to reconcile with Allah. Do you guys feel that the people in Newark, or who supported the Nation of Islam or staunch Elijah Muhammad supporters, felt like if William X. Bradley had repented, then he was good with them? Do you guys subscribe to that type of thinking?
I think it's the silliest shit ever. I think it's, I'm not saying you shouldn't be forgiven, but I think it's, I mean, they were pulling people out of prison, right? You know, changing them to Islam. So it only makes sense that they have this convenient little thing like, hey, man, go clean yourself up, come back. All sins are forgiven. When you murder a man, how do you repent without, you know, I don't know, paying that family at least, apologizing to that family? You repent because you went to some city somewhere in the world and you did something, and now you're a whole new person. That is bullshit.
What you think, Dre?
Again, in the Catholic Church, I mean, there's definitely being spoke upon about being, you know, forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big thing. But as far as you sinning, yeah, you have committed sin, and, you know, obviously change your ways, give your way to the Lord, and hopefully you can have those sins forgiven. But I think it's kind of one of those things where you got to hold on to those sins as a lesson and understand what you did and the consequences you learned, you know, or the lessons you learned from those sins, and just take it to be a better person going forward. So I do believe in forgiveness, but if it's something where people are looking at it like a wash, like, oh, just do this and you're completely good, it don't work that way.
A whole family didn't get justice.
I think that was...
There is no repentance.
Two different ways, right? So there is the justice aspect of it, which is what we humans want to see. Yeah. Well, we're all humans, right? But there's the justice aspect of it that we want to see on earth, right? And the forgiveness aspect is at the end of your life, when you transition to whatever, if there's an afterlife or whatever, when you transition to that, that's what you've got to repent for, right? But on this earth, we want to see justice served. And I think the fact that he never served justice or paid the cost for his crime on the earth, I think is where some people will have that issue, me included, right? Like, if you do the crime, you know, do the time, right? Or pay whatever cost you're supposed to pay. But that, I think that repenting and being absolved of your sins is between you and the higher power in your transition period, right? Like after, yeah. But you got to pay the price here. If you sin here, you know, you got to pay the price here. And then you can, you know, say, you know, please forgive me for my sins, whatever, for the afterlife. But here, people want to see justice.
I think the reason that man was celebrated upon his death is because I think he did the NOI. I think he did the FBI. a huge favor in what he did. I think that's why he's a hero in their community. And they can say it's because he had a gym. I think part of it with the old heads is he put in that work, and they respect that. That's the feeling I got. I'm sure he helped some people in his gym or whatnot. It seemed like everybody knew what he did, and they didn't really judge him for it, or they feared him.
That's what I was
this isn't the only crime he's committed. But I think he put that work in, and it's like a gang. Like, yeah, you forever put that work in. We forever respect you. And I think that's why he got so much love. He took out an enemy of theirs.
Yeah, I think two things. One, I'm going to contradict myself. He did serve 20 years in prison, not for the actual next crime, right? But he did serve 20 years in prison. So maybe that's why. He
was a criminal, yeah, most of his
so maybe that's why people, forgave him in a sense, right, while he was here. But to I forgot where he was going. To Jay Gill's point about there was a reluctance in the documentary for people to pry too deep into it, right? As he was going around asking, there was a lot of people that were like, "Yo, leave that alone. Leave that alone. Don't go too far with that. Leave that alone." And like, it was interesting because there was almost like a fear of people to be involved with it, like they feared repercussions for even bringing it up. Did y'all get
he had respect in that city? The mayor of Newark went to his funeral. Like Cory Booker knew exactly who he was.
Yeah, it was lieutenant governor. It wasn't the mayor.
The lieutenant governor, whatever. Oh, same thing. My bad. Lieutenant governor. Like he had a lot of respect in Newark. And I believe it's not just because this Negro had a gym and he showed people how to hit a bag. I think he put that work in. He took care of enemies, and that's what them kind of people respect, man.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really have. I'm trying to think. Was there anything else on my?
No. Yeah. If you don't, I just wanted to ask, what would you guys rate this doc 1 out of 10?
I would strong 9.5, 10. I think he did a great job. The only thing you really can't say is that overall the documentary didn't seem biased, right? Like he clearly had a bias.
It did seem biased.
But otherwise I thought it was a great documentary. I learned a lot from it, but that's the only thing you say. It wasn't like an unbiased. He clearly had a bias, but I mean, that's his story to tell, right? So.
Dre, do you feel he answered the question, who killed Malcolm X in his doc?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say he brought light to who potentially could have killed Malcolm X, because like you said, this thing I feel like is gonna go deeper than what we saw in this documentary. Like you said, there's a part of that story that we may never hear, that we may never hit the surface or hit the light. You know what I mean? Like I feel like it goes so deep that we don't even know if this is the full story. So I'm going to say no, but he at least shined light on the idea of who potentially could have killed Malcolm X.
I think from the Newark folks, I think it's clear that it was true. I can't say that. I mean, it's like you can't say that because you don't have all the proof, but the people of Newark know, and people of Newark are the ones who told them who it was. Like, they seem pretty open out there that he put that work in, and they were, for the most part, either fearful of him or of maybe even broaching that topic, or very good friends, respectful of him.
I think he answered the question, to be honest with y'all. I mean, all the evidence points to William X. Bradley having done it, right? Was there somebody deeper behind that we don't know about? Maybe.
Probably.
And I think that he shed, like Dre said, he shed light on that there's more to the story. But if we're talking about purely who pulled the trigger that killed him, then yeah, I think he answered that.
I think it's more than that. It's the FBI, it's the NYPD, and it was the NOI. Maybe you can fight me on, the leaders never gave him. No. It's still NOI people who killed him, and it was that combination. The FBI knew what, and the NYPD, FBI, one of the two, they knew what the NOI was up to, and they just allowed the situation to be right for the NOI to get in there and their people to take him out.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you think the FBI was feeding disinformation between the two, like between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X to get them at war? I think in the earlier episodes there was talk about it, but I don't know how deep they really. But do you feel like they kind of, as we talked about, like who actually pulled the trigger and the power
NOI.
behind it? Yeah,
NOI.
NOI definitely pulled the trigger. And I think he pinpointed the man, but I don't think they pinpointed who was behind it.
Like you said earlier, Rob, it's like their goal in whole FBI and all them is to infiltrate that, right? To get somebody in there, to get someone in their ears to start exposing cracks, start exposing weak spots.
Yeah.
That could have been that weak spot. Like, let me get in his ear. Let me get in his ear. Let me get those that anxious feeling in him. Let me get those paranoia feelings in him. You know what I'm saying? So I think you answered that earlier. So yeah, I think they played a big role in this.
Yeah.
I think the NOI did themselves a big disservice. I think one of the reasons they're not bigger, more influential today is because of their own selfish, jealous, greedy decisions they made back when they took out the clear next leader for them that probably would have been able to take them higher. Now how long would Malcolm have lived, even if maybe, let's say, Elijah Muhammad, let's say he was true to his teachings, right? Let's say he was divine. I mean, it was clear Malcolm X was the next in that line. If they weren't so busy trying to keep the power they had then, they'd probably have a whole lot more power now, because they would have had a stronger leader, a stronger ally in Malcolm X. And they went against him, and in the end, I think maybe helped defeat themselves a little bit.
There was probably a pretty deep divide after that Malcolm X murder, with people who felt loyal to the Nation of Islam and people who were like, we want nothing to do with y'all.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't see his Malcolm X murder happening and people going back to the NOI, right, and saying, okay, well, y'all killed our leader, so we'll come back to yours. So, yeah, I think you're right. They did themselves a disservice. They'd probably be a bigger organization today.
Stronger.
Yeah.
Malcolm could potentially still be alive today. And as good as Farrakhan is, maybe he's only a remix of the real thing, which was Malcolm X.
Yeah. Well, overall, what are y'all thoughts on the documentary before we wrap this episode up?
I give the brother 10 out of 10 just because his knowledge, the work he put in. I just feel like with whatever money he was given to put this together, I don't know if it could have been any better unless he would have got William on camera.
Mm-hmm. What do you say, Drake?
I give it 8.5 drizzies.
8.5 drizzies. Oh, was you counting your stars or spades in the back or something? Yeah. How many back there? Yeah.
I got several back there.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you guys haven't seen it, go watch it. Learn as much as you can. Research as much as you can on it. Who Malcolm X was. Don't just watch the documentary. Maybe go read, the autobiography of Malcolm X. Read some stories about his backgrounds, his teachings, and watch the docuseries.
And if you have any questions why things are going on the way they are today, pay attention to how law enforcement in this show talk about Black people and Black people's lives.
Lack of regard. But, well, with that being said, this has been another episode of 3 and a Possible.